as the House has demonstrated, that is a very popular question, so I can do nothing else other than say yes, I'll happily meet with the Honourable Lady.
Bob Blackman.
Question number 8, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, the government legislated under the 2020 UK Internal Market Act to provide for unfettered access to the UK internal market for Northern Ireland goods. The Windsor Framework further guarantees unfettered access for Northern Ireland's businesses to the UK.
There was never a question over goods going from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. So what he's saying there is absolutely pointless.
UK market on a permanent basis.
Bob Blackman.
I thank my honourable friend for that answer. Does he agree with me that the Windsor Framework potentially gives the Northern Ireland people the opportunity to trade with the Republic as well as the rest of the United Kingdom?
I do agree, Mr Speaker. The Windsor Framework represents an extraordinary opportunity for Northern Ireland for the long term. Not only will Northern Ireland have privileged access to the EU market and to the UK market, but Northern Ireland will also be under UK services regulation and will have access to our free trade agreements like our accession to CPTPP. That is an extraordinary opportunity. We should make the most of it.
I don't think Northern Ireland would have much access to CPTPP because I think there are some sort of there's rules there around how much Northern Ireland can benefit from the UK trade deals. So yeah, I don't think what he's saying is 100% accurate.
Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Sam.
The GB border operating model, which has been recently published by DEFRA, indicates that by October this year there will be border checkpoints at Cairnryan, Liverpool and Holyhead. How is the Minister able to claim that there will be frictionless trade between Northern Ireland and GB when the government is actually proposing to put border control posts on our trade routes into our most important market?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friends.
Can people hear what's going on? YouTube Live is being really weird. Can you hear it? Okay, I think it's live. I think it's live now. It's been a bit weird, to be honest. There's like a massive lag because normally when I click start, it's meant to start instantly, but for some reason it's not doing that. It's really weird. It's the second time it's happened now.
And I share many views in common, but I have to say to him as gently as possible, I think he's really referring to the red lane there. And I have to tell him, I think if we'd moved forward with the protocol bill, I would just say to him that would have implemented a red and a green lane, and the red lane would have required checkpoints. We have to engage seriously with the legitimate interests of Ireland and the European Union, and that means a solution of the form we've taken with the Windsor Framework. I'm proud that the Prime Minister did a deal that people said couldn't be done.
What a world, what a world is changed. Brexit hardman Steve Baker talking about we need to listen to the needs of Ireland and the EU. What is happening right now, honestly?
And got progress from both sides.
Wow.
We now come to questions. Prime Minister Clive Lewis.
Jeez, big up
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Clive Lewis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. 2 years ago, I raised the case of a Norwich Army veteran. In such agony, he was forced to pull out 18 of his own teeth because he couldn't get access to a dentist. The grim fact is, despite repeated promises from the Prime Minister, Norwich and Norfolk remain dental deserts. So, Mr Speaker, dentists excel at extracting rotten teeth. So will the Prime Minister agree with me? The only way my constituents will see results is when this rotten government is extracted from office and replaced with a Labour one.
So basically, for just to clue you guys in, so what happened is that you have NHS dentists who are a lot cheaper, around half the price of the private ones. It could be more than half, honestly. And they're becoming harder and harder to get because the amount they actually get paid by the NHS, by the government, is not a lot, especially compared to how much they could make if they went private. So that's one of the issues there, and there's a massive lack of access to dentistry in this country, as Clive Lewis kind of pointed out. And you have groups that work generally in the global south, in really poor countries, having to set up mobile centres to help people, clean their teeth, deep cleans and extractions and stuff, because it's just really bad in this country. I was lucky I managed to get an NHS dentist, I'll be honest, but they take you off those lists, if you don't go within a certain time frame. It's very annoying.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very sorry to hear about the honourable gentleman's constituent.
18
With regard to
teeth
dentistry,
18.
he'll know there are record sums going in.
Bro's got the his 12-year-old glasses on, so he's gonna look like a petulant child today.
To dentistry, and indeed 500 more NHS dentists working today. Because of the contract reforms that we've put in place, 10% more activity can happen, and DHSE are currently talking about reforming the dentistry contract with the persons in practice to increase activity further.
Thank you, Mahendra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Gordon, unfortunately, has been receiving cancer treatment at the Mount Vernon Hospital, which will soon fall within Sadiq Khan's new ULEZ boundaries. As Gordon continues his daily treatment, he will now be expected to pay £12.50 a charge or buy a new compliant vehicle. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the British people already have enough on without Labour's London Mayor stretching household budgets further, just so he can cover his mismanagement of TfL finances?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to hear of my honourable friend's constituent Gordon, and I send him my best wishes. He will know that transport in London is devolved to the Labour Mayor, who is expanding the zone against the overwhelming views of residents and businesses.
15 quid's pretty cheap, to be honest. That's really cheap, actually.
And what's more, his plan to raise costs for hard-working families is totally backed by the leader of the opposition. Perhaps he can now tell us why.
I don't think he's responsible for the questions. We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Well, that's what Bro's got today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We live in hope.
Can I thank all those who took part in the coronation celebrations over the weekend?
Don't care. No one
And can I
cares.
also take this chance to wish all the very best to my brilliant and talented constituent, May Muller, who is representing the UK at Eurovision in Liverpool this weekend.
Don't care about
The
Eurovision.
whole country is behind you, May. Now, Mr. Speaker, this time last week, the Prime Minister had to correct the record on misleading claims he made about employment numbers. Can he provide a further update? Now he's cost 1,000 Tory councillors their jobs.
It's not bad. First question. Not bad.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me pass on my best wishes to May as well for this weekend Eurovision. With regard to the local elections, Mr. Speaker, maybe I can just offer the honourable gentleman a tiny bit of advice from one of his predecessors, Tony Blair, who I was reading the other day. What did Tony Blair, he said? He said the right honourable gentleman can be as cocky as he likes about the local elections. Come a general election, policy counts.
I didn't know Tony said that.
Mr. Speaker.
I need to find that quote. I need to find that quote. If anyone can post that in Discord or something like that, that'd be great. But yeah, that's.
The problem for him is he doesn't have any.
The Prime Minister said he was going to lose 1,000 seats, and then he managed it. After 13 years, a Tory promise they actually haven't broken. And this is the Prime Minister who's only had to fight for two things in his life. Last year, he lost a Tory beauty contest to the member for South West Norfolk, who then lost to a lettuce. Last week, when he finally came into contact with voters, he lost everywhere. No matter who the electorate is, the Prime Minister keeps entering a two-horse race and somehow finishing third. Given his track record, who does he think he's actually got a mandate from?
Mr. Speaker, it's a bit rich to hear about mandates from the person who's broken every single promise he was elected on. I mean, go through the list, Mr. Speaker.
It's rough.
Nationalisations, NHS outsourcing, universal credit, and now tuition fees. Mr. Speaker, he was for them all before he was against them. He's not just the softy, he's the flaky too.
Bro, please stop with these nicknames. Please stop it. You know, Captain Hindsight was funny maybe once. Not even funny once, right? Sir Softy is bad. Sir Flaky is. Oh. Can we get like some adults? Just get some maturity, guys. Like, grow up. Honestly, Sir Flaky, really, Sir Flaky, resist the urge to curse at this point.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can understand why the Prime Minister's trying to wish away his terrible results, but peddling nonsense just doesn't work. Up and down the country, people want the government to focus on the cost of living, but he's got no answers.
None.
Is he planning to carry on as if nothing happened and ignore the message he was sent last week? Or is he going to do what a Labour government would do and announce an immediate freeze in council tax bills?
Mr. Speaker, I know he's asked his Labour councillors rightly to focus on the cost of living. Perhaps they could start with reducing council tax to the level in Conservative-run areas. But, Mr. Speaker, we're getting on with halving people's energy bills, freezing fuel duty to help them with the cost of living. What is stopping him having a plan is that, unfortunately, his shadow chancellor recently said she's discovered she's got a problem, Mr. Speaker. Okay. She realised that she actually, this is what she said, she actually has to, shock horror, say where the money's going to come from. With a £90 billion black hole in her plans, she's got a lot of work to do.
Mr. Speaker, there's only one party that broke the economy, and they're sitting right there. And it seems to me, to quote one of his more electorally successful predecessors, nothing has changed. Still blaming other people, still refusing to take the necessary action, still not listening to the country. And on council tax, it's quite simple. A Labour government would give every council the grant they need to freeze those bills, fully paid for by ending the handouts he's giving to oil and gas giants. So I ask him again, now his plan has been utterly rejected, why won't he do the same?
Pretty good answer, to be fair, to talk about the windfall tax, but you know, the windfall tax and all of these things are going to fund everything. Apparently, that's something Labour need to be careful of.
Mr. Speaker, just a quick history lesson. While he was busy softening sentences 13 years ago, let me just
burn, because he was on the sentencing panels. Burn.
Remind him what we inherited. It was the largest deficit in the G7 from Labour. Higher unemployment. The coffers were totally empty. And it didn't stop there, Mr.
How does a government doesn't go bankrupt like that, especially not one that controls its own currency? It's absolute nonsense. And if you look at the debt to GDP and all that kind of stuff now, it's way higher. I think it's tripled compared to what it was in 2008. I think we're one of the few G7 countries that would have more debt. America obviously being an exception because they have the world's reserve currency, but we are doing way worse than a lot of other G7 members. And the other thing is, even like France, who have more debt to GDP than us, they have way better public services than we do. So they've actually spent the money wisely. You know, they're nationalising, what's it called? EDF. That's where their money's going to. Our money we spent £32 billion share on test and trace. Do you know what £32 billion can buy you? That can buy you Manchester United Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, right? And it could buy you 24 world-class players. And you still have change. You'd have enough for salary and change. That's how much £32 billion is, guys. And, you know, these are the guys who gave it all away to these people. You know, forget, like, you got, like, Michel Mon and those people as well, you know, who made hundreds. Some of them made millions, some of them made hundreds of millions. You got that jeweler guy in America who made money off the contracts, right? But, you know, you guys cannot claim to be the party of fiscal responsibility. You know, debt to GDP's up. The deficit is not looking great. Everything, all the metrics you guys use are not good. And for Labour to not really push on this stuff, it just hurts.
Speaker, after that...
Mate, I'm in the trenches. I'm in the trench. I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
They wanted a longer lockdown, and now they won't even oppose the picketers and the protesters, Mr. Speaker. Even in opposition, they're damaging the economy.
He's just not listening, is he? Even after the entire country, Mr. Speaker, from the Peak District to the Garden of England, rejected his government last week, he still thinks that protecting oil and gas profits is more important than freezing bills. Now, I'm sure the Prime Minister must finally have met some working people in recent weeks. Did any of them understand why he insists on protecting his precious non-dom tax status rather than scrapping it and using the money to train thousands of doctors and nurses?
You know it's bad when Rachel Reeves is clowning you as well. Like, that's tragic.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he said that this money would fund the NHS workforce, but that plan was actually looked at by one of his own colleagues recently. Now that person said that it would discourage doctors and nurses from coming here. And that there was a £2 billion shortfall in his sums. Who said that? It was Alistair Darling.
Wait. Alistair Darling is not a part of the Labour Party anymore, as far as I'm aware. He might be a member, but he doesn't work for them.
You might remember those days. It's when Labour bankrupted the economy.
Hang on.
By one of his own colleagues recently. Now that person said that
Alistair Darling is not a colleague. He's not an MP. So I don't know what bro's talking about.
Tired, worn-out government, fronted by a Prime Minister who boasts he's never had a working-class friend. He's smiling his way through the cost of living crisis, gloating about success while waiting lists grow. He's pretending that crime, house building, schools are all just doing fine, while handing the country 24 tax rises, all with his name on them. How does he think the Tories can possibly provide the answers Britain needs when the whole country has already told him they're the problem, not the solution?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is right. We all do say some silly things when we're younger. I was a teenager, and he'll know what I'm talking about, because I think in his 40s he was still talking about abolishing the monarchy, Mr. Speaker.
Damn.
Prime Minister.
But it's the same old guff from him every week, Mr. Speaker. All politics and no action.
I mean, he's not in government. What do you want him to do? Like, there's barely any actions he can take. That's your job, big man. That's for you to do. Like, you're meant to be the one taking actions. Except you're struggling with, the massive right wingers in your party. Honestly.
Getting on with halving people's energy bills, freezing fuel duty, cutting the costs of childcare, and boosting pay. While he's busy plotting coalitions, we're getting on and delivering for the British people.
Mr. Speaker, this Saturday is Surrey Day, a chance for locals and visitors to celebrate everything
Today, as far as I'm aware, is actually Go 10 Day. So
wonderful about our county, including our beautiful historic High Street in Guildford with its independent shops. But frequently raised with me is empty shops. High rents with high business rates makes it difficult for independent retailers to compete with national chains. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that this government must do everything it can to support our high streets as part of our plan to boost economic growth?
I thought it was going to be a filler question, but no, she's right. There is a lot, there are a lot of empty shops in the high street. When I go to town, I could probably see about 3, maybe 4 empty shops and a lot of chains and things like that. So if you are, if you guys are listening, like how many do you guys see when you go to the town centre? But honestly, it's really bad.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right about the importance of high streets for local communities, not just in Surrey, but around the country. That's why we are abolishing business rates for hundreds of thousands of eligible businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, and investing billions of pounds through the High Streets Fund and our Towns Fund to support local communities up and down the country.
As MPs...
Nothing, like, it's your own MP that asked you the question. There's nothing about how you're going to support shops. At least Labour said they're going to do a cut in business rate for brick and mortar stores. Your own MP asked you a question and you had no answer to that. That's kind of embarrassing. All right, now it's time to get the flak jackets on.
Spokesperson Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Prime Minister was to go to the boot of his Land Rover and pull out some placards which said "Save our nom-doms," would he expect to be arrested by the police?
Prime Minister.
So he don't make sense, man. He's taken. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just hit him with 2 there. He's hit him with 2. It don't, like. How Starmer can't do that? How Starmer can't do that? It's just unreal.
Mr. Speaker, can I first put on record my thanks to the police for all their hard work over the weekend.
Arresting people with no cause, so they couldn't join a protest, even though those groups liaised with the police for months regarding the protest and exactly what they could and could not do, and the police coming out with bogus intelligence around what the group were going to do, and then you got all of these people talking about, oh, the protesters had like rape alarms and stuff, so they were going to disrupt the horses, despite the horses being surrounded by like, you know, whistles and drums, and you know, these are war horses effectively, you know, used to noise. You know, these you know, like it's mental, absolutely mental. So the point that Starmer's making, Sunak's making, is absolute garbage.
Ensuring that the coronation was a success. Now, look, on this issue, Mr. Speaker, we believe the police should have powers to make sure that they can protect the public from unnecessary and serious disruption. I respectfully recognise that the honourable gentleman disagrees with our position. I guess the question for both of us is, what does the honourable leader of the opposition think about this? Because it's quite hard to keep up.
Bro, like, what? Come on, man. Come on, man! Like, what was the SNP, like the Tory, like, not team up, because obviously you don't want to put the two together, but they're just absolutely piecing up Starmer here, because it's true, you know, like what Labour have said is, oh, we can't repeal all this Tory legislation. Then they're saying, oh, well, of course we're going to rectify it. You know, Lisa and Andy were saying that, I think, the other day, and then yesterday Starmer comes out and says, oh, we're going to let it bed in, and you're like, what's going on here? What's going on here, guys? Honestly.
Can I just remind the Prime Minister, it's Prime Minister's questions for him to answer, not asking, not for what the opposition's doing. Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, what we're talking about here is that nurses strike, doctors strike, firefighters strike, protest, firefighters protest, and of course Republicans protest as well. And they do so because it's a fundamental right within our democracy to be able to protest. So is the Prime Minister seriously saying that moving forward you can have your rights, but only on his terms?
Mr. Speaker, it is also the right of the British public to be able to go about their ordinary day-to-day lives without undue serious disruption. That's why it's right that the police have extra powers. I respect that the honourable gentleman disagrees with that, but we think it is right, and people will see every day on TV, their lives being disrupted. They're not able to get to school, to get to hospital appointments, and indeed to get to work. They should be able to do that, and the police should have powers to stop those who are preventing that from happening.
You know, when the protesters block up the roads and stuff like that, you know, that stuff I don't really agree with. But the problem is, like, some of these other protests, like the one of the coronation was abhorrent, and the police, you know, arrested these people and had to let them go with no charge. And I think potentially they might sue the police over it. But if the law says, if the law says, right, that they can arrest people without suspicion, then, you know, then legally these people have got no leg to stand on. That's the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was an honour to welcome the Australian Prime Minister to Barrow last week so he could meet some of our fantastic apprentices, see the submarine programme and reaffirm his commitment to the AUKUS programme that will deliver thousands of jobs in my constituency and keep our nation safe. But what was
Isn't the AUKUS programme designed to get Australia nuclear submarines? How is that going to keep your constituency safe, having more countries with nuclear submarines? How does that help your people?
National endeavour is now an international one, and it's going to require a whole-of-government approach to get it over the line and deliver it well. So with that in mind, could I invite my right honourable friend to Barrow to see the programme for himself, and also to meet with me to see how we can best leverage the opportunities from this for the people of Barrow for generations to come?
Well, my honourable friend is a fantastic advocate for his local industry and community, and he's right, the SSN AUKUS submarine billions.
Speaker, last week many lifelong Conservative voters turned to the Liberal Democrats to be their strong local champions. They delivered their verdict on the government's failure to hold water companies to account for dumping raw sewage into our rivers and onto our beaches.
They need to sort out the mics at the back rows.
Last year, water bosses were paid £15 million in bonuses, rewarded for destroying our precious natural environment. 3 of those executives have now turned down their bonuses, but they should never have been entitled to them in the first place. So will the Prime Minister ban these sewage bonuses so that the dumping actually stops?
Well, Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I struggle to hear the full question, but I think I think in one sense it doesn't really matter, because we all know the Liberal Democrats say one thing here and another thing locally anyway.
Semi-true, you know, they want HS2 but not HS2 here. So you know, it's a bit disjointed. But with the point he made about the companies, you know, these companies getting bonuses and whatever for all the raw sewage dumping that they're doing is just absolutely stupid.
And it is remarkable. No wonder he's attracted to the Labour leader these days, Mr. Speaker. Political opportunism and a broken promise on tuition fees. It must be like looking in the mirror.
No, he's actually cooking. You know, Starmer's actually getting cooked today. He's absolutely getting cooked. He's getting lit up by everyone. He's absolutely getting pissed up.
Ben Bradley.
To highlight some success, with Mansfield District Council now having more Conservative councillors than at any point in my lifetime after last week's local elections. I'm very proud of our local team. But one thing we heard on the doorstep was frustration. A frustration and expectation that government needs to deliver on key pledges. There has been a commitment to our part of the world that we'll be given the clout, the investment to catch up with other regions that historically have had more than we've had. So will the Prime Minister take the opportunity to reiterate his commitment and to my constituents reassure them that he will support growth and investment in the East Midlands?
Never seen a guy with a parting that big before. Has anyone ever seen that before? Sorry, it's very distracting. Yeah, the levelling up thing's a joke. No, enough said. And yeah, you're right. S_DW. You're right. The Lib Dems. That's the biggest mistake the Lib Dems ever made, honestly.
Oh, Mr. Speaker,
hey, look, it's Penthal.
Honourable friend is a tireless advocate for the East Midlands, and in particular, I welcome the devolution deal that has been agreed among the 4 local authorities in the region, something I know my honourable friend has campaigned for. And like him, I look forward to those new devolved institutions being established as soon as possible to drive economic growth in his community.
Caroline Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has previously declared, and I quote, "My daughter is the climate change champion in our house." I wonder if he's asked her what she thinks about Rosebank, the biggest undeveloped oil field in the North Sea, which would blow climate targets, create more emissions than 28 of the world's poorest countries combined, involve the obscene transfer of £4 billion of taxpayers' money to a Norwegian energy firm, Equinor, and do nothing for energy security since the vast majority of the oil will be exported. If he gives it the green light, will he be able to look his daughter in the eye?
I mean, the tuition fee stuff wasn't. The stuff about Labour kind of flip-flopping on stuff isn't. So, you know, a lot of the stuff, I think, you know, the stuff that Starmer chucked at him was, but the stuff Flynn was doing wasn't.
And honestly say that he has done everything in his power to give her and all other young people a livable future.
Mr. Speaker, as the Independent Committee for Climate Change has acknowledged, we will need fossil fuels for the next few decades as we transition to a greener future. And during that period, it makes absolutely no sense to not invest in the resources we have here at home, to import foreign fossil fuels.
She just said it's not going to be imported. Like the fossil fuels are going to be done. They're going to be done for export. So we're going to get all of this North Sea oil. We're not even going to use it domestically. We're going to export it. So the whole point is making here makes no sense.
Not create jobs here and import them at twice the carbon emissions as our local resources. It is an economically illiterate policy, Mr. Speaker, but that's what you'd expect from the Green Party.
Bro, like, I think you might need to clean your ears out, because she said that this oil is going to be exported. So for you to say, oh, you know, we're importing oil at twice the carbon or whatever, it's like these North Sea digging or whatever it's called, the drilling for this oil won't actually fix any of it. So you're talking absolute drivel, mate. Honestly, you did not listen to the question at all, but that's PMQs for you.
George Eustace.
Exactly, no investment in renewables.
George Eustace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last June, the government committed to bring forward a horticulture strategy to identify ways to expand British production of horticulture. And the importance of this was underlined by some of the supply chain challenges we saw earlier this spring. But in the last week, there's been speculation that the government might be abandoning that strategy. Can the Prime Minister give us any reassurance that the government remains committed to expanding this important British industry?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank my right honourable friend for all of his work championing this area. We are delivering for the horticulture sector, and it will benefit from the £168 million investment to drive innovation and support fruit production. And that's why we also passed the new Genetic Technology Act, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, what Phil did was say that, Labour could do these other things instead of the tuition, instead of just saying they're going to abolish tuition, not abolish tuition fees. So, the point that Labour made was they're not going to abolish tuition fees. Labour said they are going to come up with something in the future. Phil gave possible answers to what Labour could do. That's what happened there.
We're taking advantage of our Brexit opportunities to unlock the potential of new technologies, but I look forward to discussing this and other ideas at our new upcoming Food Summit.
Julie Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the Prime Minister or any of his ministers given commitments to BP, Equinor or any other company about contracts at the Teesworks site?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, contracts at the site would be a commercial matter for the companies involved.
So he's offered them no personal guarantees then. But then again, it might not be him who's done it. It could be, the Tory party. It could be the ministers who have done it, someone else, and they could spin it.
Mr. Speaker, our farmers provide our food and our countryside's future. But there's concern amongst some Oxfordshire farmers that the new schemes under DEFRA's agricultural transition plan aren't ready for farmers to access them to make up the shortfall from the basic payment scheme. Will my right honourable friend push his colleagues in DEFRA to roll out the rest of the SFI standards as soon as possible and to consider double stacking SFI and countryside stewardship payments to ensure that Oxfordshire's farmers get the support they need?
I do wonder if this is related to the Common Agricultural Policy, or at least what the subsidies they used to get. I do wonder if that's linked to that kind of stuff where farmers have lost out a lot of money and the government have changed the way that farmers actually receive the funds.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question, and of course we want to make sure that we continue to support farmers to produce healthy, nutritious food. We are pressing ahead with the ELM scheme, fine-tuning them though to make sure that they work even better for farmers. We want to make sure there's enough flexibility in the sustain.
Yeah, do you know what, that would make so much more sense. Honestly, just make that's what that's one of the things Phil actually said. I think for the key ones that we need, just make the tuition free. The fact that doctors that end up they'll end up working in the NHS end up with so much medical debt is ridiculous. Same with nurses as well, paying back student loans, teachers, all of that kind of public sector stuff. If they work in the public sector, they should have it so the debt gets written off or something like that. Honestly, it don't make sense.
Sustainable farming initiatives, and that's why DEFRA have designed the schemes.
Some of them have to pay for their own qualifications, like their own exams and stuff, which is so dumb. Like, how do you discourage people, especially in a cost of living crisis, telling them they've got to pay £300 to take a test so they can move up in a band? Absolute stupid. It's just moronic, honestly.
Farmers in mind, enabling them to do more and to make sure that they can use countryside stewardship schemes on the same plots of land. But I look forward to discussing this with him and other colleagues as well.
Alan Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Stirling, we've got a really potentially very exciting development at Forthside on former Ministry of Defence land, and sadly the development's got a bit stuck over a dispute about the costs of the decontamination of that.
This man's got the Ancelotti eyebrows, I swear. he's got the Ancelotti eyebrows.
Now, I'll work with anybody to get a result for Stirling. Will the Prime Minister meet with me and representatives of Stirling Council to get this development unblocked and make the progress we all want to see?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have invested in Stirling previously to unlock investment and drive growth, and I'll ensure that the honourable gentleman gets the meeting he needs with the relevant minister to make progress.
Mark Warburton.
The Prime Minister and I share a profound optimism about the power of technology and AI.
If Starmer said during the leadership campaign he was going to abolish tuition fees, and then comes out and said he's not going to abolish tuition fees, he has pretty much abandoned it. If he then comes back and says I've got these solutions, then that's something. Yeah, it's do you know why it's been talked about? Because it's been a consistent broken promise in British politics since 2010. That's why. The Lib Dems broke it in 2010, very famously. Very, very famously. The Labour Party have broken it again more recently. That's why it gets talked about. It's because it's an easy thing to hit him with. That's why. He's opened himself up there for easy criticism. So, complaining that this issue is being talked about so much is nonsense. Honestly, absolute nonsense. The SNP are using it because they want to obviously win in Scotland, and their main competition is Labour. The Tories are using it because they want to use it to beat down the Labour Party with as well. To argue that this tuition fees has been talked about for too long. People have been talking about what the Lib Dems did back in 2010, and we're 13 years on from that because the consequences are still affecting people to this day. I know because I'm one of those people. So to moan about this just doesn't make any sense.
In particular, has the power to revolutionise public services and our private sector as well. But does he agree with me that it comes with risks? And while there are unrealistic calls to pause research into it altogether, it is crucial for us to work with our allies around the world so that the global norms that emerge in this important area reflect our values.
Well, my honourable friend speaks with experience and knowledge on this issue, and I absolutely agree with the thrust of his question. Whilst it would be implausible and wrong to halt the development of this technology, it is right that we ensure that there are appropriate guardrails in place as we look to exploit its opportunities. Those are the conversations we are having, not just with the companies involved, but also with our allies around the world, and he can expect further progress in the coming weeks and months.
Mike Nolly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following on from his earlier answer, as the Prime Minister knows, an Eat Out to Help Out scheme was introduced in August 2020, which increased demand for eating in restaurants by some 216% compared to 2019, with figures now showing that over 17,500 retail chain stores closed in 2020 alone, affecting nearly 35,000 employees. Would or has the Prime Minister considered a similar scheme for bricks and mortar retail, bricks versus clicks if you like, as part of the wider plan for regenerating local high streets and town centres?
I don't know, if subsidising, big chains and predominantly it'd be big chains and stuff would be a great idea. The Out to Help Out scheme is subject to a lot of fraud as well. So I don't know if this is the way to do it. I wonder if I guess if you want people, people when they go to restaurants, they spend a lot more money. That helps obviously rejuvenate the economy a bit more. They might go to other places in the town centre as well beforehand. That would help rejuvenate the economy a bit more. But I think you need it's an affordability problem. You don't go to restaurants if you can't really afford it, unless you're a lunatic. So I don't think this is the best idea.
Well,
I think Starmer made pledges. Because he wanted to win a leadership contest. I don't think he had any intention of passing this stuff. And if he wanted to really kind of deflate the criticism that he's gotten, he should have come up with actual policies to help with student loan debt, like maybe increasing the threshold of when you actually start paying a student loan debt, making it maybe tax deductible, stuff like that. He hasn't come up with anything. So it's just silly. There's so much you could do to help people. They refuse. It's a blame game. Commission a study to be filed away. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We're gonna have another study into this or another report. One of my mates at uni tried to strangle Connor Burns before he was an MP over his smug attitude. Nah, I'm not gonna comment on that. But yeah. No comment, no moaning. Just think that Starmer made pledges that he didn't. I don't think he had any intention of doing them. I'll be real. Because the one they could do, nationalising rail, they're not going to do. They're not going to do that one, which tells me they had no intention.
Mr. Speaker, the way that we are supporting high streets and town centres is through making sure that we cut business rates in England. Obviously, the Scottish Government will receive Barnett consequentials from those actions, but now hundreds of thousands of local businesses on our high streets don't pay any business rates at all. And on top of that, through the Levelling Up Fund, Towns Fund and others, we're investing directly in local communities. Indeed, in his own, where I know council leaders described our investment of £19 million as very welcome and a real boost for the economic recovery.
I think there are better ways to help the town centre rather than doing the Eat Out to Help Out scheme again. I think he's got to they got to just get people more disposable income. I think that's the most important thing.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend recently scored a very rare own goal by backing Stockton Football Club in the Northern Premier League East Playoff Final, which eventually saw Long Eaton United win on penalties.
It's a filler question. What?
And
Who
in
cares?
place of good sportsmanship, will he now congratulate Ian Deakin and his team on their resounding victory, wish Long Eaton United every success in the league for next season, and join me at Grange Park to...
MP, stop asking stupid question challenges. Go.
Standing up in the Chamber of Scottish Parliament and tearing up, literally ripping into pieces, the Scottish Government's highly protected marine area proposal. This proposal is deeply controversial all over Scotland and has even led to it being compared with his second Highland clearances. Is this not
also,
now...
You guys realise that abolishing student loan debt means people have more disposable income as well to actually spend in the economy? It would help a lot of the healthcare workers as well. Even if you just said we're going to abolish tuition fees for public sector workers, that's a much better policy than saying we're not going to abolish tuition fees, but we're going to come up with something in the future. Promise. He did this unprompted before a local election, guys. Like Starmer created this mess for himself. There's no one else he can blame here, and also the fact that he's not going to raise taxes on the top 5% of earners either. He's not going to reform capital gains tax. At least we haven't seen anything on capital gains tax. So, you know, like there's a lot he can do, a lot he can offer people, but he's not doing that. So, you know, like 100% these criticisms are deserved. Like when you make a rod for your own back, you deserve it at that point.
Now the time.
Shameful thing.
Is this not now the time for the UK government to step in and work with the devolved...
There you have it.
Mr. Speaker, I will not be silenced, because it matters... This matters deeply to my...
What's going on here?
...constituents. Deeply. Is it not time for the UK government to step in, work with the devolved administrations to come up with a scheme that works and is acceptable, a conservation scheme that is acceptable in our fishing communities all around the UK?
Well, the honourable gentleman makes an excellent point, and he is a passionate champion, as he should be, for his local fishing communities, and he's right to highlight the concerns that have been raised.
The Tories, the only thing the Tories have taken is the windfall tax. That's about it. You know, this argument that Tories are nicking Labour's homework or whatever is absolute baloney, because the only thing they've really taken is the windfall tax, as far as I'm aware. There's not much else. This is absolute nonsense. Labour shouldn't be coming out with main policy. Cool. Why is he talking about tuition fees now then? That's on him. Why is he talking about not raising taxes on the top 5%? That's on him. Like, these arguments don't make sense. He's got to sort comms out. He's in charge of that. He's handpicked the people in charge of Labour's comms. It's all on him. So, you know, to say that we shouldn't criticise him on tuition fees or things are overblown or whatever, like, he's created this mess for himself. And he deserves criticism for it, because he hasn't got long to fix up. He's got about just over a year until there's a potential general election. That's not a long time. He's got to stance up here.
Not just by them, but by members of the SNP's own party, about the potentially damaging impact of their plans to introduce the highly protected marine areas in the way that they are. I would encourage the SNP government to continue working with the Scottish fishing industry and coastal communities to understand their concerns, and as we've seen them recently U-turn on other poor thought out decisions, hopefully they can relook at this one too.
Manchester.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. The marine protected areas
has a strong, deep, multi-dimensional relationship with Pakistan. And there are over 1.5 million British Pakistanis here, and many of them are dual nationals, as am I. The Prime Minister will have seen the scenes coming out from Pakistan, the civil unrest where people have lost their lives due to the detention of the Prime Minister Imran Khan. There are real concerns about the circumstances of his detention and the right to have a fair trial. The United Kingdom has in the past sent observers to hearings around the world to ensure natural justice is done. Has the Prime Minister considered that? If not, will he consider it?
Prime Minister.
Well,
so
Mr. Speaker,
I think Imran Khan was arrested on potential corruption charges, and it was massive. There were lots of protesters and things like that. So I'm not 100% sure that the merits of the case, that's going to be a problem. I mean, the main criticism isn't comms. The main criticism is what he's saying. And then because the comms team suck, they can't do any kind of cleanup for it. So that's the problem. The main problem is Starmer, because he's coming up with, he's saying things that, you know, he has no real defence for, and he makes all the other shadow ministers look stupid. That's what happened with the tuition fees. That's what's happened with any other, promise he's broken. Because he keeps announcing stuff. Labour said recently, they're going to look to... Nandi said, 2 days ago, we're going to look to rectify the bill. We're going to look to rectify the problems with the public order bill, the anti-protest one. And Starmer came out yesterday evening and said, we're going to let it bed in. Starmer is the problem here, guys, because he's not getting people in the room to say, look, this is what the policy is going to be, this is what the line is, this is what we're going to take here. Instead, he lets Labour shadow ministers go out there and say, of course we're gonna try and do something about this. And then he says, actually, we ain't going to do that. And he embarrasses them all. That's the problem. Let's be honest now.
Thank my honourable friend for his question. The UK, of course, has a long-standing and close relationship with Pakistan, and this weekend, especially as Commonwealth partners. The arrest of the former Prime Minister is an internal matter for Pakistan. We support peaceful, democratic processes and adherence to the rule of law, and we are monitoring the situation.
I mean, he's not going to get forced to step down. Stella Creasley's a bit, I'm not 100% sure on her. Yvette Cooper, she's good at criticising the Tories, not good at much else. When it comes to actual policies, she kind of sucks. So definitely not her either.
Situation carefully.
Carolyn Harris.
There's not a lot of talent in the Labour Party, I'll be honest. That's one of the problems.
Mr. Speaker, a little boy has gone to school today in shoes that don't fit him because his parents can't afford new ones. A little girl had water on her cornflakes because her mum had no money for milk. These are real stories from Faith and Families, a charity in my constituency that deal with poverty every day. Poverty that is causing prolonged shame and leading to a mental health crisis. Faith and Families are worried about these kids. I'm worried about these kids. If the Prime Minister is worried about these kids, what's he going to do about it?
I don't want to use that quote. That's attributed to Michael Jordan, but yeah, the Tories don't care about kids. They don't care about them.
Mr. Speaker, we don't want any child to grow up in poverty, and that's why I'm proud that there are 1.7 million fewer people living in poverty today than in 2010 because of the...
I wonder if they just changed the definitions of poverty. Honestly, I think they did at one point. I'd have to check that out. But the idea that there are less kids in poverty now than there were in 2010, I find that hard to believe. I'll be honest.
Actions of this and previous Conservative governments. That includes hundreds of thousands of children. And we are providing incredible support to the most vulnerable in our society as we speak. Just last week, the first of our cost of living payments went out, £900 to help the most vulnerable families in our society. Those are our values, and we will keep supporting them as the inflation remains high.
Alan Cairns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier in questions, the Leader of the Opposition sought to draw attention to council tax rates and council tax increases and offering some crocodile tears in
I had a feeling they did.
Process. Can I draw attention to the Prime Minister's attention that whereas we have seen 43% increase in council tax rates since 2010 in England, the increase in Wales has been a staggering 67%. So therefore, is it not the case we should be looking at what Labour do rather than what Labour say?
I think the problem is that they get a certain amount of money from central government. That's one of the problems. So I don't know if Wales has some sort of variation on the Barnett formula or something similar to that. So I think that's one of the I don't think Welsh Labour would get enough funding as much as they need. And we know the Tories play pork barrel politics over council funding anyways. So the idea that they would fund Labour councils is absolutely stupid. So that's what I'd want to look at, is how much funding do these councils actually get and why do they get the funding they get? That's the key question, in my opinion. Yeah, there isn't a lot of talent in the Labour Party. That's one of the key problems. I haven't seen anyone that looks like they come through. I mean, Clive Lewis would have been a good pick to be Labour leader, to be honest. The guy looks like he's got a brain and he's got interesting ideas. I don't know, electability might be his only issue based on he's very anti-monarchist and things like that, but honestly, he'd do a better job than Sir Keir Starmer, I'll be real, so-called Knight of the Realm.
My right honourable friend makes an excellent point. The Leader of the Opposition is very fond in telling us that...
I mean, honestly, if you look at £32 billion they waste on test and trace, right, and consultants and all of that stuff, imagine what they could have done if they invested that into education and into supporting vulnerable families. £32 billion would have gone a long way to helping these people out, and it would have boosted the economy as well. Absolutely tragic.
Labour in Wales as his blueprint for how he would like to run the country, and as we've seen, all it means is higher bills for hard-working British families.
Shepherd.
Thank you. The geezer when he got the first question at PMQs, but honestly, like the arguments people are making in defence of Starmer is absolutely shocking, absolutely shocking. It just hurts. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have something on it on Friday potentially. I've got like a lot of work I need to do between now and Friday in order to get this video out. But absolutely shocking.
Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 years, the Drax power station in Yorkshire has, on average, burned almost 20,000 tonnes of trees every single day, releasing an equivalent of...
What is going on with the state of the glasses people wear at PMQs? Like, what's going on there? It's like they're going for like the Harry Potter look, but worse. Bro, like what is going on?
...amount of carbon into the atmosphere. During that time, whilst our constituents have struggled with their heating bills, the private company running Drax has received £1.5 million of subsidy through the government's energy policy every single day. This is set to continue until 2027. Can I ask the Prime Minister, will he step in and review this grotesque distortion of energy policy, which incentivises deforestation whilst making no contribution to tackling the climate emergency?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, while not being able to comment on the contract details of one particular company, what I can say is that our record on this issue is that since the benchmark was established...
Focus? What do you mean? I am focusing.
Emissions in this country have fallen by almost 50%, whilst at the same time we've grown the economy by 2/3, not something I know the SNP government is as focused on as we are, but at the same time, because of the way that we regulate new and renewable energies, we've seen the price of renewables like offshore wind decline from £140 an hour to around 40. That shows a regulatory system that is working in delivering lower cost renewable energy for British families.
Costa.
I mean, you're not really investing that much in renewables, so no, you're not. You know, there's a lot more the government can do to make us more self-sufficient, build more, actually, build the nuclear power plants. Regardless of the fact that nuclear power plants are very expensive, build more offshore wind, build more onshore wind, build more tidal, stuff like that. There's so many options the government could do for to make us more energy sufficient, so we're not so vulnerable to global price shocks. But it doesn't.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Plastic pollution is a scourge of modern day society. My 10-minute rule bill seeks to have microfiber, microplastic filters fitted in all commercial and domestic washing machines. Legislation which France and...
Oh, this guy again. Oh, no. Do you guys remember this guy? This guy was like when Johnson, I think it was him, right? 90% sure it was him. Johnson was getting pieced up, right? He was getting pieced up about Partygate and all this stuff. This guy's like, oh, my constituents, this company in my constituency has started making washers, and they're making washers for like, I don't know, like Samsung or some nonsense. Will the right honourable gentleman praise this company for the work that they are doing, making washers? And I was ready to throw hands. I was ready to punch my screen, honestly. I'm 90% sure it was him.
Other countries have already moved forward with. Will the Prime Minister, who has already done an enormous amount in tackling plastic pollution, will he organise a meeting between me and the stakeholders, particularly washing machine manufacturers, with the...
It has to be him. It has to be him. He's obsessed with washing machines.
Secretary of State to discuss this very important issue?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we want to tackle microplastic pollution wherever possible, which is why we introduced a microbead ban and a tax on plastic bags. I know my honourable friend has campaigned for filters on washing machines, but he will also know they can be costly to install. DEFRA have outlined plans to make sure that we can use more filters, but I will ensure that he gets the meeting that he needs with the relevant minister to discuss this important...
What I want is for Labour to do better. That's why I criticise them, because I don't want the media to have easy attacks on them. If they shore themselves up, if they actually put up mitigations against the basic criticisms that people have, they would be in a much better position. And I don't mean in the polls, because the reason why Labour have such a big increase in the polls is predominantly because the Tories suck. Let's be honest now. And we don't know what will happen in the general. We don't know what the autumn budget is going to look like. We don't know what the spring budget is going to look like. But Labour have a long way to go until the election. And for anyone to be like, oh, they did really well at the local elections, therefore, they're going to win the national whatever. You got to be very careful. Never take elections for granted. You learned that in 2015. David Cameron, incredibly unpopular politician, won a majority. You got to be very, very careful. In general elections, and you don't take voters for granted and things like that. So for certain people, and I'll be addressing this. I'll be addressing this in a couple of days. I think I'm not 100% sure yet. But to cover up their mistakes, Labour's mistakes, and spin their mistakes as these aren't failures, these are successes. Fine. It's fine. Agree with me, don't, or whatever. But I'm frustrated to no end at some of this stuff. I'll be honest. That's the problem, and I think I'm going to have to discuss it. It's eating away at me a bit.
Important matter further.
Stephen Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government ditching its pledge to recruit 6,000 more GPs is yet another example.
The Lib Dems and Greens did really well, really well, as well. They didn't do as well as Labour did, but they are the two. Especially the Greens are a very fringe party. They did really well, and I can see the Lib Dems decimating the Tories in certain seats. I want them to take Rob's seat, what's his name, Mog's seat, and a good few others. I would love to see the Lib Dems absolutely piece them up. I don't even like the Lib Dems as a party, but if they piece up the Tories, they will have. I'll give them some respect.
The Tories over-promising and under-delivering, with teacher recruitment targets missed and housing pledges shelved. Why does the Prime Minister think that the only target he's actually met was the loss of 1,000 Tory councillors last week?
Not bad. They also missed the target on the NHS this week as well.
The Honourable Gentleman can tell us which of the many promises that the Leader of the Opposition made to him when he was campaigning he's most happy that he's U-turned on.
It's Prime Minister's question, so the Speaker really should have stepped in there. But again, like I said, opened himself up to easy criticisms.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Lincolnshire's roads, foodstuffs grown in our fine county are transported across the nation. But the Highways Authority struggles to fund roads because of the skewed funding formula devised by a previous Labour government. So many of our public services suffer, policing included. So will the Prime Minister agree to urgently review the local government funding formula, the police funding formula, so that Lincolnshire can have a fair deal?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right to stand up for the particular needs of his rural community, and like him, I recognise that rural areas do often have higher costs of providing services. It's right that those are reflected where we can in funding formulas, but I'll make sure that he gets a meeting with a relevant minister to discuss this important matter further.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 13,450 prepayment meter vouchers have gone unclaimed in my Glasgow Central constituency at a value of over £887,000. Across Scotland, £16.5 million is unclaimed. The Prime Minister's energy bill support scheme is failing if money which could be helping our vulnerable constituents is resting in his government's account. I recall he's not very familiar with how prepayment meters work, but what will he do to ensure that every single penny gets out of government coffers and into the meters of those who really need it?
Probably get Dido Harding on the job, let's be honest now. But there is a lot more. I think the problem might be that there's more work, more kind of stuff has to be done on the local level to tell people that if they're on prepayment meters, they can get access to support. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done on that.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful that the Honourable Lady for a Change acknowledged the support that the government is providing to families up and down the country. Particular attention was given in designing those schemes to how to get the support to prepayment meters. The ministers are always engaged with stakeholders to make sure that there is awareness of those schemes, and I'll make sure that we keep up those efforts so that people do get the help that they need and deserve.
David Morris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting that the Leader of the Opposition says about keeping council tax low when the Labour Party voted to increase Morecambe Town Council from historically £400,000 to £200,000.
Filler question.
Sudanese doctors who'd been working in the NHS were stranded and not allowed to return here. Last week, the Minister told us here that the Prime Minister took the decision to get them back. So why hadn't such a straightforward decision been made much earlier by the Home Secretary or the Foreign Secretary? Is it because he's an obsessive micromanager, or is it that his ministers are just not up to the job? Which
I mean,
one is it, Prime Minister?
it's not wrong. I think it's not the micromanager stuff. I think it's the you know, our Foreign Secretary is James Cleverly. James Cleverly is a moron. All right, straight up, James Cleverly is an idiot. Okay, our Home Secretary is Suella Braverman. She probably like, yo, these are, you know, these are Sudanese people. You know, we don't rate them around here. We don't rate people from certain continents and certain skin tones around here. You know, best of luck dealing with the conflict that's going on there, because you ain't coming back. It don't surprise me at all that the Home Office botched this one.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman.
Well, you know, absolutely no. Prepayment, it should have lower rates, but they have higher rates, and they have I think this is called the standing charge as well, which is ridiculous. And you know, the whole thing is they pay up front for the energy. Surely they should pay less when you pay up front. But the system is broken. It don't make sense.
Is completely wrong to describe as straightforward a complex and dangerous evacuation in a war zone, and actually it is actually the case that everyone involved deserves enormous credit for conducting what was the longest and largest evacuation.
Well, we were relying on Germany and France to get people out. You know, I think the British government, I can't remember, it was like, it wasn't Rob, it was someone was like, oh, we're waiting for Germany, or, you know, until Germany do something. I'm like, bro, like, you're telling me, you know, we pay so much money for the RAF, and you're telling me they couldn't fly in there and help out people. Honestly, especially when we cause problems as well, regarding other countries' evacuations with some of the decisions that were made. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Evacuation of any Western country from Sudan. During that process, it was right that we moved deliberately and carefully to ensure the security of everyone involved and to prioritise British nationals and their dependents. Now that the operation is complete, we can look back and thank everyone for what was an incredibly successful operation.
It's a failure just like Afghanistan.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2010, violent crime has dropped by 38%, and neighbourhood crime has dropped by over 50%. But one crime that has gone up is fraud. Now, many of us...
Don't talk to the Tories about fraud, you know, especially over the COVID contracts. But Suella Braverman omits fraud from the crime statistics. That man's wearing a pink shirt and a pink tie. It's bright as hell. Don't be talking about fraud statistics to Suella.
Dealt with constituents who've struggled with fraud. What is the Prime Minister going to do about it?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right. 40% of all crime.
I think what you got to do is you got to speak to your local Labour candidate. Speak to your Labour candidate, and in the most serious tone that you can, say, look, I'm going to vote Lib Dem. I'm going to vote Lib Dem, or I'm going to vote Green, because Lib Dems are pushing PR. Lib Dems are pushing much closer relationships with the EU, and the Lib Dems overall have much better policies, in my opinion. Now, if the Labour candidate says, look, you know, I can win this seat, and you know, if you vote for the Lib Dems or whatever, you're wasting your vote, say, cool, I missed the part where that's my problem, because at the end of the day, you know, you ain't gonna win a job like this. You have to earn my vote. My vote is not given to you. You have to earn it, and the only way you're going to earn it is by getting certain policies that I want. That's what you got to do. Regardless of how much of a barefaced lie it is that you're not going to vote Labour, just tell them, look, I ain't going to vote Labour, I'm going to vote Lib Dem. That's what you got to tell them. And you'll be like, Lib Dems are on the rise in nationally. They're doing well, and I'm going to vote for them because they're the party I believe in. They're the party I think are going to do what's best for the country, not you guys, because I don't know what you guys stand for. And so, you know, that's what you got to do. So if any Labour person comes to my door, I'm going to say, look, I'm going to vote Lib Dem, and this is why I'm going to vote Lib Dem. And you got to try and say, like, if you want my vote, you got to earn it, because they think certain votes are a given, and you got to make them believe that it's not. That's the only thing we can do here. As in, I say we can do the only thing we can do. As in, this is the only leverage we have is our vote. And so, regardless of how serious or unserious we are here, the only thing we can do is say to them, look, I'm gonna vote Lib Dem, and unless you give me something to change that, I don't care, because it's your job to win. And if you can't win my vote, that's your fault, not mine. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what you got to do.
Now is fraud. It's damaging for people's well-being as well as harming their finances, which is why the Home Secretary and I just recently launched a new plan to combat fraud with significant new investment. Hundreds of
dirty frauds I'm seeing. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frauds on my screen. Clearly you're not dealing with them properly.
New officers to tackle it, and action on social media companies to empower people to take action and to stop fraud happening in the first place. It represents the most comprehensive plan to tackle this issue.
Well, Penny's going to be the next leader of the Tory party. She managed to hold up a sword, so her sword handling skills are apparently very good. So watch out, she might stab you, Ackies.
And it will make a big difference to families everywhere.
Final question, Stella Creasy.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if she's got a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, a young man with brilliant potential who was 16, Renell Charles, was brutally murdered on his way out from school in my constituency in Walthamstow. Yesterday, a 16-year-old boy was charged with his murder. Renell's family are heartbroken. Children in my community...
This is sub judice, so rather than go into detail, Stella Creasy.
Promise not going to... What I'm saying is...
So yeah, it's an ongoing case, so I'm not going to begrudge the Speaker for getting involved there. You got to be careful in case ongoing in England, contempt of court, etc.
Children are terrified to go to school. Their parents are frightened to let them, and the teachers are at their wits' end. They've asked me to come here today, Prime Minister, to beg you to make the epidemic of youth crime in our country a national priority. So will the Prime Minister meet with myself and representatives from my local community to talk about how we can get the mental health and mentoring support these young people need so that every young person in our country has that future they deserve?
Banger question. A banger question there. That's 10 out of 10. Yeah, that's important. My cousin, he's about like 15, right? He's going to be 16 in a couple of months. There was a kid in his school, right, that got stabbed to death. In the, I think it was in the town centre. There was a fight. One guy lost, and the kid who stabbed him was like 13. He was 13 years old. The kid with the knife. It's absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying what's going on. Knife crime's been a major problem for a while now, but it's getting worse, and the people doing it are younger and younger, and they carry these big ass swords, man. Big swords, big knives, and they will stab you up, no hesitation. They'll happily do it, and it's absolutely terrifying. So for me, like something, I don't know how you fix this stuff, but reducing this stuff is so important. Yeah, I'm not going to read out your comment just because it's in this context it wouldn't be appropriate, but no, I get what you're saying, Suzanne. Yeah, she's alright. She's pro rejoin, but it doesn't, being pro rejoin like right now, it doesn't really matter because the EU aren't going to take us back. The UK has to go through a massive redemption arc for us to have any chance of becoming an EU member again, and I mean a massive redemption arc. One that we've not seen in fictional history. That's how big it's going to have to be. There's a lot to be done here, and I don't, she's fine, I guess. I don't know what she'll be like as a leader, but yeah, sure. She's better than, she's better than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people on the front bench, right? That I can see in this picture. She's definitely better than them.
Mr. Speaker, I hope my honourable friend, I know the whole House will join me in expressing our sympathies and condolences to Renell's family for what's happened. She's absolutely right. We should do everything we can to tackle violence and murders against young people in particular. I'm pleased that knife crime has fallen by almost 10% and serious youth violence has fallen by 24% in the last few years. That's because we are giving the police the powers they need.
Is that down to the fact that there was a pandemic and people weren't allowed to go outside? Is that why the crime figures are significantly lower?
Whether that's stop or search, increasing jail terms and confiscating around 90,000 weapons. Of course, we will always look to do more to make sure that our streets are safe for our young people.
No, it's not just policing though. She's talking about mental health support. She's talking about youth support, giving kids opportunities. They don't have to go into gangs. That's not a point she made, but that's one of the things that has to happen here. because you have kids that grow up in extreme poverty, really high amounts of poverty, and you get drug dealers and other people who offer money. You say, look, if you come deal drugs with me or whatever, you can get paid this much, and then they'll be like, look, that kid's, he's your competition, he's selling drugs, he's on our turf, go wet him up. That's what they'll say. They're not interested in educating regular youth. Imagine if they knew how things should work. As for school violence, working on solutions doesn't fit their narrative. Look at the US and guns. Yeah, that's a whole can of worms right there. That's a whole can of worms. That the amount of school shootings you see in America is absolutely terrifying. Having more people like her communicating to start with is a good thing in itself. I get your point, and I think the main problem is Starmer just like we mocked Johnson for doing how many hospitals we're going to build, 40 hospitals, how many schools we're going to build, blah 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 blah. But what he does is he reinforces the message in his ministers' heads that these are the lies we're going to tell. That's what it is. And what Starmer has to do is say, look, on this policy, this is the line we're taking here, and everyone try and stick by it. Because Lammy was talking nonsense. Lisa Nandy now appears she's talking nonsense. Something Gwaine, I think his name is, he's talking nonsense. Do you know why? Because Starmer was like, actually, we're going to let it bed in. All of these people saying, we're going to rectify all these problems and blah, blah, blah. Actually, we're going to let it bed in. That's a massive difference from repeal or any amendments. We're going to see what it's like. Give it time. When we know this bill's a bad idea. It's got international condemnation from the UN and Amnesty International. I've got an article up about it, actually. Let me see if I can find it just quickly. Let's see. Oh, it's too many tabs. Where's the Amnesty one gone? Oh, it hurts my soul. Here it is. This is the Amnesty one. What do these new laws mean? So this is from, when did Amnesty post this? April 26th, right? So it's from about just end of last month. So what do these new laws do? Setting a very low threshold to define disruptive protesting. So if the police officers think the protests are disruptive, arrested. Giving police significant new powers to prevent a protest occurring outside of major transport networks. Oil and gas, that's designed to stop oil. People like them. Making locking on a new criminal offence. Locking on is when you do like this sort of stuff here. That's a criminal offence. Extending the use of stop and search powers, including suspicionless stop and search to protest. So they can just say, we think you're carrying something, we're going to search you. Or they don't even say we think, they can just say, we're going to search you. Introducing a new ban on a new protest banning orders that would prevent individuals from attending protests at all. So they can say, for no reason, you're not allowed to go. If you go, you'll get arrested. All of this stuff. Will all these new powers make racism and over-policing of marginalised groups worse? Stop and search is counterproductive and is widely misused against black people. So that's going to happen even more now. Even more. Just together, this is what Amnesty is saying. Together we will work to repeal both this public order legislation and the anti-protest measures. There's anti-strike legislation in this stuff as well. Honestly, right? Labour need to repeal this stuff. They need to repeal it, and for Starmer to be like, we're gonna let it put in. Ooh, you just like get lost. Absolutely just get out. Go join the Tory party. Go join someone else, mate. Because you're an absolute fraud. Honestly, what a fraud this geezer is. Talking about how is it this one? No, this is one I got on Sunak that I'm going to do about him failing NHS targets, which was mentioned. Where's the Sunak one? Here, the police need powers. Here it is.
If Labour. The whole history of Labour is a history of protest.
Well, I think there are two things going on here. On the one hand, I think most people say to deal with that. But on the other hand, there's a balance to be had, which is to protect free and peaceful protest. Operational decisions were made over the weekend. Some were right, some were wrong. The police themselves have accepted that a number of them were wrong. That needs to...
But there's no recourse. There's no real recourse for the protesters.
Be a learning experience. Legislation needs to bed
down.
But
you won't repeal the Act.
Well, I think we need to let it bed in.
Yeah. There you go. Look, you won't repeal the Act.
Legislation needs to bed down.
But you won't repeal the Act.
Well, I think we need to let it bed in. Yeah. We need to look at how it operates in practice. Very often with public order legislation, as you know, there's a period of bedding in. Just because the police have got a power, it doesn't mean they have to bed in. Yeah. We need to...
You won't repeal the Act.
Well, I think we need to...
When all these people are saying, of course Labour are going to repeal the worst bits of it or amend it.
To let it bed in, we need to bed
but
down.
You won't repeal the Act.
Well, I think we need to let it bed in.
Boom. Boom. What more you say? I don't know what I'd do for byline because I hate writing. I don't like writing. I wouldn't mind doing a collaboration with them if they wanted to do like a couple of videos, or like, you know, when Max was on there, that was quite cool. I'd have to sort my beard out if I was going to do camera work, because, you know, they got the good quality cameras. They got that high def. You know, gonna, you know, if I'm looking bad, they're gonna see it. So you know, I would collab with them if they wanted to. I'm open to collaborations with most people, to be honest. I don't really mind that much. As long as they put out good content. I've got a collaboration planned for when I hit 7k subs, so get me there, people, because that's gonna be a good one, in my opinion. So, you know, get there. Yeah, I wouldn't mind collabing with them. Let's see, final comments. They claim anything is disruption to the public, no matter how small. I will always support the right for non-violent protest, no matter how it may inconvenience people. Yeah, the only ones I kind of struggle with, and I know people get annoyed at me for this, is the ones where they block up roads. I don't like that. You know, anything else, generally, depending on what it is fine. Disrupting, you know, trains and stuff like that, I don't really like that, especially if you're just up oil, you need more people to take public transport or whatever. But, you know, generally, just, you know, when they go like on the snooker stuff, like it don't, you know, the way that Just Up Oil what they should do is target rich people who take like private jets and, you know, drive like, you know, them stupid cars that guzzle, you know, shit tons of, I swore, you know, tons of petrol and diesel and all of this kind of stuff. That's what they should be focusing on, because they'll get onto the Conservative Party. That's what they should be doing, in my opinion, anyways. Let's see. You're again not arguing here. Watching Hakeem. Don't know what his surname is. I can't pronounce that. And second thought, have made more critical. I just have an obsession with balance. I can go overboard. You know, but balance is overrated. Honestly, just look at what's being said and look at the analysis. That's what you got to do. Hey man, if you can talk to them on my behalf, QA, I'd 100%. I'll take that. Bruh, nah. I can't roast him because he's not here. But man, that's scary. That is scary stuff here. You know, they're going to see the imperfections in my beard and stuff. You know, I'll get pieced up. You know, I'll get pieced up. I don't want it. You know, there's a reason why I'm not on camera much, bro. I'm not happy with my my appearance. That's the problem. But depending on how today goes, I'll see if I can get some cycling in. You know, fearless catching stray bullets out here though. You hate to see it. But what else can I say? I think I'm going to call it there. I've got some work I need to get on with. I've got loads of writing. Can you see like how many tabs I've got open on my computer? There's loads of like writing and other bits and pieces I've got to do to try and get a video out by like 3:30. So a lot of work to be done here. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. You know, we've got about 10 concurrents, which is decent. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let me know what you think, and you know. You know, I don't know what more to say here, people. Honestly, I don't know what more to say. I'm kind of a loss for words. Yeah, no worries. I don't live stream enough. I think that's my issue. It's because obviously Phil does it on Saturday. Max does 2 a week, Friday and Tuesday, so that kind of limits me on the days I could do it. And you know, I'm live streaming on Wednesday, so really it could be I could live stream say Monday or Monday, Thursday or Sunday. So I'm not sure which day. Maybe I'll put it to a poll. I'll put it to a poll of which additional day do you want me to live stream on. The other problem is like sometimes like my family visits and stuff in the evening. That's the other, because I don't have my own studio space. You know, maybe one day I'll be able to get it and I'll be able to stream more in the evening. But you know, like if I have guests over, it's not like I can just, you know, continue streaming and ignore them, because that's not great. You know, if someone takes the time to come to your house, then the least you should do is at least chat to them for a bit. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit tricky. But I will look to add one. Maybe I just won't do it on a set day. I don't know yet. I'll figure it out. Talking to Robert, here's Mark Watton, Nissan Leaf EV that now used by his daughter has 4 tyres deflated by Just Stop. Yeah, Charlie, stuff like that. You're not going to win. You're not going to win people over. Honestly, you're not going to win people over by inconveniencing them like that. You know, people know. You know, most people know there's climate problems and all this kind of stuff. But honestly, by popping people's tyres and all this stuff, all you do is piss people off. And they hate you. So when they see you on the street, when they see you on the TV, they're just going to hurl abuse at you. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, I'll catch you. I'll catch you a lot next week, or I'm gonna try and add a second stream. I just don't know when I'm gonna do it. I'll put a poll up on the channel in the next few minutes, and I'll just see what people say, what days they think is best. People can be like, oh, just stream whenever you want, bro. It's like, you want to find out what's easier for the audience as well. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think, all, and yeah, Aki, you speak to QA, you speak to your people in Byline and see what they say. Say I've got this cool guy who wants to chat to you guys about collaborations or something. I don't know. Just make me not sound like a jobber. That's the key. Make me sound like I know what I'm talking about. That's gonna be it's gonna be difficult, but I think you can do it. But yeah, I'll catch you a lot in the next stream. Bye bye.